Good afternoon, everyone. We are just waiting as all of our attendees log on, so we will start momentarily. You're all very welcome to this afternoon's Sláintecare webinar. I'm Gráinne Healy and I am delighted you've joined us for today's session, the 17th Sláintecare webinar, part of our Learning Network event series. As always, we are very happy to take questions or comments from you, the viewers. So just use the Q&A function and I will convey your questions or remarks to the panel of guests joining us this afternoon. Sláintecare is about the right care in the right place at the right time by the right team. And research shows us that the majority of us want to remain in our own homes, connected to our community as we age. This desire is often challenged by our homes not being suitable as our needs become more pronounced and as our financial means decrease or our mobility declines. However, with the right assessment and intervention, our living and social environment can be changed from one of potential health risk to one of health support and well-being. Our webinar today is presenting the Healthy Age-Friendly Homes programme, a Sláintecare and Age-Friendly Ireland joint programme. The initiative is a 2-year initiative running across 9 local authority areas and seeks to support up to 4,500 older people during this period. The programme works to support avoidance or early admission to long-term residential care, enabling older people to continue living in their homes or a home that is more suited to their needs, to live with a sense of independence and autonomy, and to be and feel part of their communities. Before we begin our conversations with those involved in developing, delivering and experiencing the Healthy Age-Friendly Homes programme, I am delighted to bring you a message from Mary Butler, TD, Minister for Mental Health and Older People, followed by a second message of support from Peter Burke, TD, Minister of State at the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage.
Good afternoon. I am delighted to welcome you today to this Sláintecare webinar focusing on the Healthy Age-Friendly Homes programme. Healthy Age-Friendly Homes launched in July 2021 in 9 locations around the country with the goal of keeping our older people living longer and healthier lives in their own homes for as long as possible. As we think about later life, most of us would prefer to stay in our own homes, surrounded by friends, loved ones and the familiar setting of our community. Our ambition as a government is to do everything we can to support older people to do just that. Healthy Age-Friendly Homes is a unique collaboration between Sláintecare and local government which takes a home-first approach to delivering the Sláintecare goals of providing safe and timely access to care, improving patient and service user experience and bringing care closer to the home. For our older population, quality of life and its impact on health can depend on the appropriateness of their home environment, the conditions in which they live and the services that they have access to. We know that good health and well-being goes beyond just healthcare, and to provide truly holistic and patient-centred care is to look at the wider determinants of health. That's why at the heart of this programme is the collaboration between health and housing, taking a holistic and multi-sectorial approach to care delivery, and we will see during the course of this webinar the real-world impact this programme has had for older people already. Indeed, health and housing go hand in hand, and housing that is unsuitable for older people's needs can delay discharge from hospital or lead to premature transfer to long-term residential care. There is a huge cost to health services, to individuals and to the state in general in supporting health issues that are directly and indirectly linked to housing. Over the past 10 months, Healthy Age Friendly Homes has been working hard to provide care to our older people that will help them avoid delayed hospital discharge and premature admittings to nursing homes. I am delighted to support this important and innovative programme and look forward to seeing it deliver more positive outcomes for our older people. Gorv Mahagwith.
The Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme is a very welcome development in the context of housing for our ageing population. The programme involves the provision of an integrated service between housing and health, and some of its key features will make a real impact on meeting a number of strategic objectives when it comes to supporting our citizens to age in place. Population ageing will require an increase in public spending, most notably in healthcare and housing. The government's stated ambition, and mine as Minister with responsibility for housing for older people, is to support older people to live with dignity, to have choice in housing, and to have the best possible quality of life in older age. The Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme, which you will be discussing today, is an early intervention that provides direct support to an older person in home to enable them continue living independently. This type of support directly responds to our consultation with older people, which was carried out to develop housing options for our ageing population policy statement in 2019. Through a referral system, local coordinators assess the older person's living conditions and social needs and link them into the supports they require, whether that be healthcare appointments, transport, technology, supports in the home, or community-based services. Housing adaptation grants will also fall under my remit, are one of the most sought-after areas of need. The coordinator can explain the grants available and support an older person with the process of applying for the grant. This type of hand-holding throughout the process makes it much easier for an older person to navigate the system. Sometimes very modest adaptations can make the difference between staying in your own home or transferring to long-term residential care. Right-sizing is another option for some older people who feel that they are living in housing that is too large or expensive for them to maintain. And there is a strong research evidence to suggest that many people in this situation of being unable to manage in large homes. Our local authority Healthy Age Homes coordinators can also support the process of right-sizing, helping an older person to identify more suitable accommodation, providing advice and coordinating services such as decluttering, furniture movers and changing of utility bills. These are very practical supports when provided at an early intervention stage, have potential to reduce the risk of falls and injury in the home, enhance a person's capacity to manage activities of daily living and increase comfort and warmth in the home, while also reducing pressure on acute health services and demand in residential care. The simplicity of this service does not take away from the far-reaching impact it will undoubtedly have. The quality of housing for older people is fundamental to supporting health and well-being, and ultimately to ensuring that older people can have a good quality of life in their later years. We all know of older citizens in our community who may need a little more support every now and then, or who live in substandard accommodation. Healthy Age Friendly Homes is working at the coalface to ensure that older people's needs are met in relation to suitable housing that supports their health and social participation. I'm looking forward to the programme evaluation, which will give you a clearer picture of this impact and help inform decisions around scaling up in all areas of the country. This is a hugely practical and welcome programme which I know will provide real value to thousands of households and citizens across the country.
So thank you to both ministers for that. Health and housing, we are told, go hand in hand. There is a real sense from both ministers there that this initiative is changing the lives of so many people in their own homes. And we're going to hear more about that as our webinar goes on. I am really pleased now to get into some more of the detail of just what Healthy Age Friendly Homes is all about. I'm joined by Andrew Hannigan from Sláintecare and the Department of Health. And I'm also really glad to be joined by Mark Harrington. Mark is the National Manager of the Healthy Age Friendly Homes. Mark and Andrew, lovely to see you both this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. So great enthusiasm from the ministers in both of these departments around this initiative. But Mark, can I come to you first? Could you describe the Healthy Age Friendly Homes initiative and tell our viewers, just really scope it out for them? What is it about?
Yeah, thanks, Grania, and good afternoon. And thanks to Sláintecare for the opportunity to talk to you and everybody today on the webinar. I suppose the Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme is an innovative new way of working. So it's integrated working between the health and local government sector. So you've touched on it and the ministers have touched on it. It's the main aim and purpose of it is to enable the older person to remain in their home or a home more suited to their needs. So that could be with housing adaptation works, it could be with right sizing, it could be with minor works to the home, but a home more suited to their needs. It's about living with a sense of independence, being and feeling part of the community, and then supporting the avoidance of early entry into long-term care.
Right.
So the programs and the ahead, Grania. The programs and the roles are funded by Sláintecare and rolled out through Age Friendly Ireland, which is a shared service within local government. And the coordinators, we have 9 coordinators in the 9 sites. As you referenced earlier on, we're in 3 of the Dublins. We're in Fingal, Dublin City, South Dublin. We're in Longford and Westmeath. We're in Galway City and County. We're in Limerick City and County, and we're in Tipperary and Cork County Council. And effectively, what happens with the 9 coordinators that we have on site is when we receive a referral, the local coordinator will call out to and carry out a home visit with the older participant, and they'll carry out a person-centric needs assessment focusing on 4 domains. So the 4 domains will be housing, healthcare, technology supports, and community and social supports. So what they'll do is they'll assess the individual needs of the older person, and they'll formulate and facilitate a support plan with actions around the needs of the older person. And really, it's about facilitating, in the first instance, maybe providing information. Then it could be signposting to existing services, facilitating processes. So we're finding a lot of, for want of a better word, hand-holding. So we would deal with a lot of applications, particularly with the housing adaptations or housing applications that can be very daunting to people and older persons, and particularly if they don't have any other supports coming into the house. So what we're doing is we're assisting the older person with making them applications, linking in with other services where we need other documentation, and then lodging that. What we'll do then is for all the, we'll implement the actions, and for all the actions, we'll track the progress. So we'll continue to communicate with the participant, and then we will also link in with the service provider to empower and enable the older person to remain in their home.
Right. So in some ways, this kind of one-stop shop approach, because I know even in my own family, you know, elderly relatives, they're not used to going online, even changing all this advice about change your electricity supplier. And they're like, I've no idea how to do that. So this kind of hand-holding approach is superb. Can I come to you, Andrew, and ask you, what's the connection between Healthy Age Friendly Homes and Sláintecare?
Thanks, Grania. I suppose just to begin with, Sláintecare, we're delighted to be supporting this programme and to fund the initial 2-year phase. I think Minister Butler captured it very succinctly that, you know, healthcare goes beyond just, or rather the determinants of someone's health goes beyond just healthcare. It is that wider social element. You've got housing, the living conditions, the social elements like education, all those things. And I think what we've seen from Sláintecare is, most people are familiar with that idea of Sláintecare's vision of integration of care and shifting care out of the hospitals, reducing the burden on the hospitals, bringing care closer to home. And the only way you can kind of have these wraparound services that address the holistic view of someone's health is actually to bring in housing, to bring in community supports, to bring in technological supports. And we're seeing more and more of these programs happening. So we have obviously Healthy Age Friendly Homes, which has been up and running for 10 months or so now. We also have the Healthy Ireland program funding healthy communities. So again, this is kind of, taking this wider view of healthcare in the broader social sense. And you have the Healthy Communities program, which is looking at things again, like areas with high risk due to housing, social supports, education, living environment, things like that. So there's tons of research really backing up this program to show that poor housing conditions are a strong indicator of healthcare utilization. So if we can start addressing that and making people, empowering people to live in their homes for longer and healthier lives, then we're starting to address those wider determinants of health.
Yeah, and I know we'll be speaking with some of the coordinators later on, and they'll be showing us what I thought was really interesting around, keeping people linked into their communities. That is probably just as important as giving someone a crutch or a wheelchair, like in terms of, people being happy to be in their own communities, the impact on their mental health. So this is a lovely combination of very practical, maybe technical housing and health supports, but that wider mental health. I have a question in here from Eilish, and she's asking, is there a cost associated with availing of this service? Mark, maybe you take that on.
Yeah, Grania, so there is no cost. So, we would say refer into the program, there's no cost. We'll carry out the needs assessment and we'll direct you, assist you in signposting and accessing the services that are out there and available. What we found is in a lot of cases, people don't even realize that there is a service there, and then they don't realize they can access it, that they're entitled to it. But no, it's free of charge.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I know we'll talk later on about plans for the future and extending beyond the 9 areas, but it sounds to me like there is a hell of a lot of coordination required to successfully deliver this. I guess interagency collaboration, it sounds to me like it's fundamental. Would you both like to comment on that?
Sure, I can take that to begin with. I think this is really one of the key success factors for this program is the interagency collaborative approach that we've set out here. We're working across health, obviously, with the Department of Health, the HSE with the Integrated Care Program, and we have Des who can talk to that later in the panel. We're also very strongly linked in with the housing element and then the voluntary organizations. So I think what's really key to this is having that position, that local coordinator in that central role, in the strategically placed within a local authority. They have that ability to then act as a central focal point for all of these services coming in, these wraparound services for the older person. So, again, coming back to that idea of kind of developing new care pathways as part of the Sláintecare vision, this new care pathway of having a hub, a central focal point, it really is kind of an innovative new way of carrying out support coordination for our older people. Very
good. Mark, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, so I suppose from an operational point of view, and the local coordinator on the ground would very much be linked in with the operational side of it, from community housing, health, transport, and very much linking in and coordinating them supports with the other services. From a national point of view, we would have strong alignment to ICPOP, and again, Des Mulligan is with us today, and he can probably reference that. And our evaluation partners in Minutes who are evaluating the academically evaluating the process. And
so that's the integrated care people.
Yes.
ICPOP, yeah,
great. And again, we have secured funding through our partners in the SEAI, and we're offering a free home energy assessment to every participant of the programme. Wow. The value of that is €400 to the individual, and what that'll do is it'll give the person their BE or cert, what works are required for the retrofit, how much timely. That will cost, how much that will cost, timely. And the grants available. And again, what that will do, as I said before, it enables and empowers the person to make a decision, fully informed decision as to what's best to fit their needs.
Yeah, very good. And I know we said that there's no cost. Is there some kind of financial assessment involved for people who are looking for this? Do they have to have income below a certain level, or is it open to anyone?
No, so there's no assessment, financial assessment. It's
Fabulous.
open to everyone. So everyone that's referred in, we'll visit and carry out the home assessment and whatever needs are required are on the individual basis. So
Great. And on one level, I think to myself, this sounds so simple, but I know the complexity of working at that interagency level really requires everyone to be on the game. Listen, thank you to you both. I know we're going to hear more from both of you as the afternoon goes on, but I think we've really, had a sense now of an introduction to what it is, who are the partners involved. So next up, we have a short video for you to just explain a little bit more about healthy, age-friendly homes and hear from one participant in this little video clip who has benefited from her involvement.
Since the Healthy Age Friendly Homes programme was introduced 10 months ago, we have carried out over 1,150 home visits and provided more than 2,350 supports to older people within the 9 areas where we are currently providing our service. Some of these support actions have included right-sizing, housing adaptation works, warmer home grant applications, primary care services, befriending, fall detectors, pendants and many, many more. The purpose of this Sláintecare funded programme is to help older people remain living in their home or a home more suited to their needs for as long as possible, feeling independent and continuing to be a vital part of their community. Later we'll take a look at how a collaborative approach can help discover and achieve great outcomes for our older participants. But first, let's meet one of our coordinators, Gillian Robinson, on a home visit in Limerick.
I'm just going to pop back in today to visit Margaret. Margaret is a 68-year-old lady who lives alone in a small village in County Limerick. And at the time when I visited her before Christmas, she was having issues with loneliness, mainly due to COVID. She felt isolated. She was afraid to use her bath. She'd had a few falls and her immersion was broken. And at the time that we were coming into winter period, Margaret was also receiving bogus calls on her phone. So I put actions in place and Margaret had works done in her home. So we're now just going to pop back in today to see how she's getting on.
Hi. Margaret, how are you? Fine, thank you. Come in. Prior to when the coordinator called out, I felt very lonely because it was COVID and people weren't calling, and even out everyone was keeping a distance, and then my immersion wasn't working and I fell twice in the bath tried to have a shower, and I tore all my back and I was black and blue, so I decided something has to be done.
Are you happy with the work the contractors in the
I explained all this to the coordinator when she called, and she helped me to fill out the application form. She told me all my entitlements, which I never knew I had. And now I have my wet room, non-slip, shower, everything. My immersion is fixed. What I need, I have. Oh, I'm very happy with it. It's just, Gillian, it's unreal. Well, when I got the survey in, I'm afraid of filling forms out, and I'm sure there are a lot more people out there. But when I read it for the third time, I realised there was something on it that I wanted done, and I took a chance. And I sent it off to the Age Friendly Homes programme, and the ball started rolling from there because a coordinator came out to me and she helped me fill out every form that I had to fill out. And that's all you have to do. It costs nothing. When I wake up in the morning, it's fantastic. I can just get out of my bed, walk into the bathroom, have my shower. No fear of slipping, no fear of falling. And it's just amazing. If I feel unsteady, all I have to do is hold on to the bar. And the same with using the toilet, the bars are there. It's a new lease of life for me, myself, personally. It's the freedom of being able to leave my home and come back to my home. I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. I wouldn't go to a nursing home. Nothing wrong with nursing homes, but I prefer my own corner. It's my first home, and it'll be my last home.
Many thanks to Margaret there, showing us how her uptake of the very welcomed supports available is allowing her to stay safe and well in her own home. That's a great story. We met Gillian there in the video, and I was delighted to speak to her earlier to talk about her role as a healthy age-friendly homes coordinator. Gillian Robinson, you are very welcome. As Limerick City and County Healthy Age Friendly Homes Coordinator, Gillian, would you begin by telling me, where do referrals for the programme come from?
Certainly, Gráinne. So our programme receives referrals from various sources. A high percentage of those would come from the HSC, which would include social workers, occupational therapists, public health nurses, physiotherapists and local GPs. We also get then referrals in from our local authority staff and counsellors within each area, the Alzheimer's Society, Family Carers Ireland, Alone, Sage Advocacy, also Care and Repair. Many of us have also been going out to spread the word about the programme, so we get referrals in from active retirement groups. And of course, we would have self-referrals and family referrals also for people.
Fantastic. So a very wide base,
yes,
from which people can be referred into the programme. So you speak about the programme being person-centred, that you take a person-centred approach. Gillian, just talk to me a little bit about what does that mean in practice?
Certainly. So I suppose the programme puts the elderly person at its core. You know, we identify and address the specific supports needed to ensure that the older person can continue to live in their home environment. And it's only when we are actually there out on the ground in the person's home, completing these assessments and creating their person-centred plans that you really see how beneficial the holistic approach is. This, I mean, the assessment itself, it covers 4 domains: housing needs, the health needs of the person, community and social-based supports, and also technology supports. So, you know, in a holistic fashion or a person-centered approach, we are trying to assess that person and give them assistance in a holistic way.
And Gillian, I was very interested to see it's not just about keeping the person in their home, but also keeping them connected to the community.
Absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about the importance of community connection.
Yes, I suppose, you know, from a societal and community perspective, having older people living within our communities is extremely important. Our older people, you know, they have a lifetime of experience, and our communities are richer for having them embedded within it, I suppose, you know. And now that is a dual impact, I suppose, for the community itself, but also for the older person, because they feel that they are connected to their communities also. So that you know, there's a two-way benefit to that.
Very good. Yes, I can see that. So the program sounds fantastic. I know you've been having great success with it, but have there been challenges, any challenges that you've encountered?
I suppose with any program, with any work you do with people on the ground, there are going to be challenges. COVID, of course, has been you know, has had a big impact. When we started the program back in June, there were still a lot of COVID restrictions, and I suppose older people were very nervous then about having someone actually come into their home and talk to them and do an assessment with them, which is face to face. But that gradually has become, it has eased, you know, as restrictions have eased. Again, I suppose a legacy from COVID, you would have staff shortages within services. You know, there can be long wait times if we're going to put a request in for a service for a person. Unfortunately, there can be a backlog. Again, you know, that is due to people, businesses having people out with COVID sick, or, you know, again, with the restrictions in place. You know, and a major one, I suppose, from a Limerick perspective, I find it for the older person, they've really have had a challenge in getting contractors to do the work. Again, I feel this is a bit of a legacy, in relation to COVID, because there is such a backlog and a demand for that type of work.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose those of us in the wider community are experiencing that. If you want an extension done, or even a piece of work in the home,
Yes.
so your people are being affected by that kind of backlog. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I can see that as
and
a
as
challenge.
well with, you know, you'd have HSE backlog as well, you know, it was for a very long time there, you know, there was elective surgeries and cancellations. So that is just the nature of the environment, our, you know, our macro environment as it is at present, but that will gradually change, and hopefully backlogs will be cleared, and, you know, we can get those people, those services quicker.
Very good, Gillian. So let's talk about the flip side of that, the benefits, the people that you're dealing with, enabling them to
Yes.
stay in their home and community. Talk to me about the benefits you see.
Yes, certainly. So, I mean, I see my role as enabling an older person to age in place. Nearly every person that I have done an assessment with, an older person, wants to stay living in their own home. They want to remain where they're comfortable. They want to feel independent. You know, they want to feel safe and secure in their home. You know, and we are there to enable them to do that through our program, and also, you know, the promotion of health and well-being also is beneficial to them. So you see the person, you know, once you have completed works with them, and, you know, guided them to services or enabled them to get a grant or whatever actions that you have done in relation to the work with that person, they feel afterwards that, you know, they feel more content, more that they're engaged more, I suppose, back in with community as well. I'll give you an example. I had a lady, and COVID, I visited the lady in August, September time, and, you know, she felt very isolated, actually. I was there really to give her information, mainly about grants and Meals on Wheels and bus routes and things like that. But when I was telling her, befriending, you know, really came to the fore after her assessment. And I asked her, would you like to be registered for a befriending service? So she said she'd love that. And so that has still been ongoing. And I was actually talking with her last week, and she now has works done in the home, which is, you know, a practical benefit to her. But she is now back out in a community group doing painting. She's taken up painting, a workshop, which she said she would never have done if that befriending hadn't been in place, and, you know, the engagement to get her back out was there. So, you know, the benefits can be, you know, minor to major.
Exactly.
But for each person, because it's so individual, for one person, it could be that big piece of build in their property that makes the difference. But for another person, it could be even getting in contact with an active retirement group that they didn't know before, and getting out meeting people. So engagement, you know, well-being is as important, you know, as safety and independence in the home. I suppose another benefit also, Gráinne, about the programme is, you know, we have people can avoid long-term, having to stay in hospital long term. I have a lady here in Limerick, and I have assisted her with an adaptation grant to put in a stair lift and an accessible bathroom unit in her home. She has very mobility issues and severe respiratory problems. And the lady actually went into hospital recently, and I was talking to her on the phone there during the week. She's actually really looking forward to coming home, because she has these works that have been complete now, are done, and they are in place. So she's going to be able to come home earlier than she would normally. She would usually have to go into respite for maybe a week or two, because she wouldn't have been able to use the facilities in her home. So, you know, again, this highlights, you know, the necessity and need for a program like this.
Absolutely, and that of course really fits in well with the Sláintecare idea of, you know, the right care, the right place, but most importantly allowing people to go back home when they have left acute hospital care, and making that as speedy and as effective as possible. So that woman is well sorted from the work that that you've done in her home. Well done, Gillian.
Thanks, Gráinne.
So I think we can all see and hear Gillian's enthusiasm for her work there. And she's really seeing the impacts that her supports are making on the ground to many of the people that she's dealing with. So many thanks there. So let's go back and bring Mark in again, if we could. Mark, you remember, is the National Manager of Healthy Age Friendly Homes. And we're just going to talk a little bit about the progress that the programme has made to date, Mark, if that's okay. So to begin with, maybe some of the numbers, how many participants have been referred into the programme so far?
Yeah, so we have to date, and Andrew referenced it, we're about 10 months into year one. To date, we've had over 1,300 referrals into the programme. And again, they're coming from multidisciplinary sources. I suppose Gillian touched on it as well. They're coming from health professionals through primary care and OTs and public health nurses, and they're coming in from the local authorities, staff, elected representatives, and across the community and health settings. Again, we have a referral form for professionals if they're referring in, and again, we'll put that up at the end of the webinar in relation to how to access that.
Right. So talk to me then maybe about the types of supports. We've had some indication of them, and you did talk about 4 kind of distinct fields. How many and how much of these supports are you providing so far?
Yeah, so as part of the support plans that we have put in place for the participants, we have over 2,350 supports actioned to date. Over 50% of them would be from the housing domain. And you're looking at a large portion of them being housing adaptation works. Right. What we're seeing is with health professional referrals into the programme, a large proportion of the referrals in would be for that housing piece, because they're already linked in with a lot of services because they're dealing with the health professionals. So that's why the larger amount probably is in relation to the housing piece. And look, obviously there's going to be better outcomes for the older person once they get works carried out. There's going to be longevity of tenancy, reducing in falls, and overall better housing condition, which obviously has the health impact for the older person. If they're living in a better environment, that's going to have a positive impact on their health. The next highest level would be the health domain. So we probably had 20% of our actions will be in the health area, and the types of actions we would be doing there is referring participants in or linking the participants in with the primary care team, linking them in with the public health nurse, OTs. We'd also then try and link them in if they required any transport to appointments, getting them that transport or linking them into that transport, or linking them into their GP in their local area if that's what they require. Right.
So of course, you know, there are areas where public transport is quite poor, so you'd be filling some of those gaps as well. And I suppose, Mark, you know, there's a lot of stakeholder engagement. Talk a little bit about, you know, is this these engagements that you already had, or have you had to pull them together pretty much from scratch?
Yeah, but look, we're in phase 1. It's a new way of working. So really we were last May and June, we were starting off from scratch and trying to do that stakeholder engagement. It's an ongoing process. So it hasn't stopped, and it's continuing. Today is another part of it. But I suppose from a national and local level, we're engaging with all our stakeholders. So we've had engagement sessions with the HSE management in each of the areas and staff, the local authority management and staff. We would present to the elected members through our full council meetings. We'd have information sessions nationally and locally with the NGO partners and collaborators in each of the areas. And Gillian touched on it as well. Since we've come out a little bit from the restrictions of COVID pandemic, we're doing a lot more face-to-face engagement, and we're kind of visiting the community groups. So we're visiting the active retirement groups, we're visiting the men's sheds. We're actually finding that a good source of referrals into the programme as well as out, because in a lot of cases, the people that are at the group wouldn't necessarily be linked into services already. You know, so this is their first time availing of a service, and we're able to kind of link them in, you know.
Yeah. And I was thinking, you know, about the programme in terms of maybe there are some people and their families are thinking we need to do get a bit of work for mom, she's not able for the stairs. Like, this service would be a great help to them in terms of saying to them, these are the kinds of things that are available, just a little bit of advice. People may be happy even to pay for it themselves, but knowing the right adjustments to make to your mom or dad's house to keep them at home and keep them safe and healthy. It seems to me this is a wonderful support. Have you had to put new systems in place to support carrying out the work of the programme?
Yeah, so again, it being a new program, we have put in a new case management system. So that would be obviously in the national office within our shared service. So we manage the new case management system centrally. And we would have implemented a new needs assessment tool for the coordinators. So that needs assessment is carried out in digital format. So the coordinators would have a tablet with them when they're carrying out the needs assessment, and that's all done digitally. It's just submitted then into the central system. And then we've also introduced a new mapping tool. So we have, through the HSE, we've got access to and we've been given over 9,000 health points that we've mapped. And what we've done now is we've overlaid that map with other information and data that we've got from the geo-directory, which we've extracted information as to what services are available, identifying what them services are, mapping them. And we've also partnered with the National Transport Authority, and they've given us information in relation to transport. So bus stops, bus routes, taxis, accessible taxis within certain areas that would be able to
literally mapping the possible pathways to a multitude of services.
Exactly, and that's obviously there for the benefit of the coordinator to provide the best service they can. So effectively what's going to do is coordinators visiting Mark Harrington tomorrow morning, we'll be able to put in the air code reference, and we'll be able to identify, we can put forever parameters, 5 kilometers, 20 kilometers within the county, and we'll get all the services that are available under them 4 domains. We'll be able to give a printout as part of a booklet to the participant, showing them the service that are available, but it'll also help us identify if somebody needs any supports. These are the services that we can kind of navigate to within that area. It'll help us with a bit of gap analysis as well. And then obviously there's potential for a wider scale use of it in future, but that'll form part of the evaluation process.
Wow, that mapping seems to me, it's just a great system to be, and so useful for lots of other people as well. In terms of, now I know in the past we put together local health directories, but if you didn't know they were in the library, you didn't get them, and so a lot of people not knowing what is actually available within a 10 or a 5K of their house. A lot of people are wondering, Mark, you mentioned evaluation. Is there a report available yet on the 9 sites and how it's all going? Where are you at with that kind of the research and evaluation end of the initiative?
So we're actually in the middle of preparing our interim report. So that we're going to be presenting that to our oversight group next week. And again, that will be evaluating the impacts to date. So it'll be evaluating the program data, so how many people we visit and many referrals, but it'll also be identifying the impact it has had on individual participants who have consented to be part of the research. And so we're looking at over 200 participants over the lifetime of the 2 years. At the moment, the evaluation is over the first portion of that. So we're looking at the impact the program has had on the individual's quality of lives. And that report, again, will be going to the oversight group meeting and will form part of our business case, again, for phase 2 and the wider scale rollout throughout the country.
Yeah, because a number of people are asking the question, why only 9 areas and why aren't you doing it everywhere? But just to explain to people, this is a pilot, 9 sites to see how it goes. So your report over the next couple of weeks will be hugely important in determining where it goes and I suppose what has worked well and what hasn't.
Exactly. It's look, you'll see and you'll see from the cases, and you can see from today clearly how well it's working for the individual person on the ground. Phase 1 is about identifying how best to roll this out and what has worked, and then progressing that through Sláintecare and identifying and making that recommendation for phase 2.
Right, right. Okay. And I suppose one of the other questions, and I put it to Gillian, challenges. I mean, it sounds like you've had great successes, but there have been challenges. Any addition? She mentioned COVID, obviously. You know, we could talk about the hacking and the HSE. All of those things must have been like major headaches for you.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, phase one, we commenced the program in May and then rolled out the home visits in mid June. So obviously, no more than all the other services that are providing community housing, health supports. COVID obviously was one of the main challenges, and you know, the concerns about face-to-face, and that was particularly heightened over the Christmas period. So we had them challenges, and again, as soon as we started the program, the HSE cyber attacks, I don't need to tell anybody on the call the implications of that. But again, the implications on the program was for us to do that engagement with nationally with the HSE staff and then operationally on the ground. It had a major impact at the very start of our program. No more than anybody else, I suppose, we have retention of staff and turnover of staff. I suppose that's happening in most organisations or agencies. And we did identify very early on that we needed additional administrative supports for the coordinators, and that effectively the coordinators were best served for the programme to be out carrying out the assessments and carrying out the actions. And we now have that admin support to do the follow-up admin piece. What I will say is we have met and overcome all them challenges, and they will form, because we're in phase one and we're being evaluated, they're going to form a core part of that evaluation. How we met them, how we overcome them is going to feed into that business case and that plan and recommendation for phase two.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I think looking at the role of the coordinators, really crucial that they're connected into the network, but also even the personalities, like going into someone's home, like we could see from Gillian there, you'd be opening your door, delighted to have her in for a chat and a cup of tea, and that kind of matching of the sort of social skills that people need to get the trust of older people who may be living on their own. And particularly at the end of COVID, there is something about, you know, lots of people very, very nervous about re-entry, lots of them really nervous. So all of that is all part of your rollout challenges as we go into the future. So if there was one for you and your role as the national coordinator of it, Mark, is there one big learning for you? One thing that you've thought, you know, when you go home, you think, oh, that was really crucial.
Yeah, what I would say is we're in the 9 sites and we have various experience across the 9 sites. So we have the coordinators are coming from a wide range of experience. So we have people coming from the local authority and housing backgrounds through tenant liaison officers. We have people coming from nursing and the HSE background. We have care managers. We have people coming from advocacies. So we have a very wide range of varying experience, and that really has helped the program, because as we network between ourselves as a team and with coordinators, we have a vast amount of experience there to deal with nearly every query. We've a clerk of works who can deal with the housing. We have someone coming from a health background. So that really has helped the program advance and progress with the speed it has progressed.
Yeah, that's fascinating. One final question coming in before I let you go, Mark. Around that mapping tool we were talking about, they're wondering, are there plans to make that available to other services in the areas where you're creating the maps?
Yeah, so as I said, the core function of it is obviously for our program and for the coordinators. So literally we're rolling that out at present. What we'd like to do is evaluate how that works and then work with the partners that have shared that data with us in relation to, is this something that we can then progress and roll out wider? We've had a lot of interest in it. Anytime we've presented, we get a lot of focus on that mapping piece, because what we have been able to identify and overlay on that is the CSO figures. So we can identify population-based between areas. We can do that analysis between areas. We can identify how many people are over the age of 65 in a particular area, how many services are in the area. for the older persons in that area. So it really will be very good in relation to that population-based approach, which is a core focus of Sláintecare.
Yeah, absolutely. And even whether sometimes it's highlighting the gaps, what's not in an area with a high density of older people, or vice versa, the kinds of resources that are there that people could and should be using.
And that's another good finding for ourselves. While we can identify gaps, we're also identifying best models of working, because we're in the 9 sites. If something's working particularly well in Galway, can we replicate that in Limerick, and can we raise that at a level which we do within our oversight group? So we do identify best practices as well as a gap.
Yeah. So, and I often think, a lot of those best practices in one small area become promising practices that if you can replicate them, you may be solving a whole series of problems for the target group, because they're kind of custom built and custom made, in this case, for older people. Mark, that's really fascinating, and it's great work. I just want to congratulate you before I let you go. And thanks a million for all of that information, for all the work that you're doing.
Thanks very much, Grania.
Thank you. Before we turn to the panel discussion this afternoon, we have one more testimonial video to share with you, giving us further insights into the work of the coordinators and the experience of being a participant in the Healthy Age Friendly Homes initiative, and the role, as we've spoken about already, of interagency collaboration and engagement.
In the first part of this video, I mentioned that we achieved great successes in the programme to date. But when I say we, I don't just mean all the team in Age Friendly Ireland. I of course mean that this is a new way of working. It is a collaboration between health, housing, local government and the NGO and community sectors. In this next case, we will hear from Geraldine, another participant living in the Limerick area, Claire, a primary care social worker with the HSE, and Denise from the Care and Repair team, highlighting how working together we can assist older people within our communities to remain at home. But first, let's hear from Gillian again.
In the film The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy clicks her heels 3 times and says there's no place like home. It's the place where she wants to be. As a coordinator for the Age Friendly Homes programme, I visit older people in their home, and they too want to remain in their own home. My job as a coordinator is to enable older people to age in place.
Over the course of my meeting with a client in the community and during our social work initial assessments, often I might get asked some questions that might be outside of my own kind of healthcare expertise, particularly in relation to housing grants and housing adaptations from the local government. So I would actually be able to take on them queries from the client and then refer on to our colleagues in the Age Friendly Healthy Homes programme.
Older people have many needs: housing needs, health needs, mobility, technology, social needs, community needs. And as a coordinator, I visit older people in their home and discuss with them these needs, create a plan for them that's relatable to the person, that's unique to that person, and put services in place so that they can stay in their own home for as long as possible.
I had a case recently where an older person had a fall in their home. They had a discharge from hospital and had to coordinate, I suppose, many aspects of their life due to this change. I would have made a referral to the Healthy Homes programme, where we were able to access, in a timely manner, the grants process, where they were able to receive a stair lift and funding for a level access shower. So there was a real integrated approach.
Here at Our Lady of Lourdes Community Centre, we have a range of services for older people in Limerick City. One of our services we have is a care repair. Care repair is run by a team of volunteers that go into older people's homes and do a range of DIY jobs, like putting up curtain poles, bulbs, handrails, carbon monoxide alarms, smoke alarms, and a range of other DIY jobs. And we have a great relationship with the coordinator of the service. We refer clients into them and they refer clients into us.
When a necessary and an important intervention is signposted to us by one of these people or by you, we can start the ball rolling and ensure the process delivers on its promise, as we have started to do with Geraldine, who's also from Limerick and faces a number of challenges in continuing to live in her own home.
As a result of my rheumatoid arthritis, From the visit of the district nurse, I had to have my bed downstairs. She recommended that I have a commode, and she was very helpful. So I do miss the shower. So I'm hoping that I will be able to get the lift, and you know that maybe the bathroom will be sorted out. When the coordinator visited me, together we went through what was available to me in the condition I was in. So we filled in the forms for the alarm, for the you know, because in case I fell. So I felt a little safer having that. So from that then I applied to the Limerick City Council for the stair lift application, and also for the bathroom. So I was very grateful to find out that that was available, because it's a bit awkward having a commode. Like I used to feel a lot of the time that I was losing my not my grip, but you know, my self-worth, if you like, because I just couldn't do my basics with pain. And I think that if more people knew, were made more aware publicly, maybe in some way, that they would be better able to survive.
As you can see, Geraldine has many challenges, but she's beginning to overcome these challenges, which is great to see. With the support from our programme and the support from supplementary services that we signpost to her, she will be able to live in her own home where she wants to be. We will continue this support to her in the future.
Our programme is here to assist the older person by working with you and other service providers in a support coordinated role. So please contact us for more information or make a referral at www.agefriendlyireland.ie.
So thanks again, excuse me, to the coordinator, Gillian. We heard from social worker Claire there, and the community centre worker Deirdre from the Care Repair team. And I want to say special thanks to Geraldine Murphy from Garryowen there in Limerick, a beneficiary of the programme, giving us a clear picture of how Healthy Age Friendly Homes works and its impacts on people like her supported by it. Geraldine's words of how she was before she accessed the programme are very impactful. She says, "Before, I couldn't do my basics." She tells us, and I think this is important, you know, really the supports she has had have been transformative for her and the quality of her life. Okay, so we've heard from some of the key players in this. We've heard from some of the beneficiaries. It's time now to turn to our panel discussion. And joining us for the panel discussion, rejoining us, first of all, is Andrew Hannigan from Sláintecare and the Department of Health, whom we spoke with earlier. I'm also delighted to be joined by Des Mulligan of the HSE Integrated Care of Programmes for Older People. Claire Nocton from the Social Inclusion Unit in the Department of Housing, with responsibility for policy on housing for disabled people and older people. And finally, I'm delighted to have Claire McGuigan, Chief Officer with Age Friendly Ireland, as part of the panel this afternoon. You are all very welcome.
Thanks, Grania.
Thanks, Grania.
Thank you.
So, Andrew, we've heard a lot about the detail of the programme. Would you say something more maybe about, you know, healthy age-friendly homes? How is it contributing to Sláintecare goals and the programme for government vision of an age-friendly Ireland?
I think that's really important, actually. The vision of an age-friendly Ireland. It is contained within the programme for government, and its vision for a universal healthcare is an age-friendly Ireland. And we have Catherine McGuigan here from Age Friendly Ireland itself, so I'll let her speak to the details of the Age Friendly agenda. But in terms of how that contributes to this idea of universal healthcare, I think choice is very important here, because aging in place is a very important concept. But I think people forget that it's the choice to either stay in their own home as much as possible, or choose to right size to a more age-friendly accommodation if that's suitable for the individual. So I think that piece around aging in place is very important. In terms of Sláintecare itself, I was going to mention the points around population-based planning, but yourself and Mark actually covered
We got into that, yeah.
You covered my points very well there, but I think, you know, Sláintecare does envisage a move away from this kind of supply-led delivery of service. You know, we're moving away from that and more towards a population-based approach in how we plan our services and fund our services as well. So the tool that we developed with the mapping system is a very, you know, early preview of the power that we have in developing a population-based approach. We have a very practical use for that mapping system where we can, you know, run off a list and a map of all the services in a person's area they may not be aware of. They may realize that there's a library nearby, or a Meals on Wheels or something like that. But there's also that very important kind of gap analysis that I think you mentioned, Grania. You know, where are the gaps in the service? And in the presentations, there's been some interesting examples of the contrast. I can't remember the specific location, but there was a particular area where we could see there was something like 50 or 60 beauty salons, but very little by way of dentistry services. So there's a gap in very important health services for people, not just older people, but people in general, for that population. So that piece where we're looking to kind of adjust our planning and our funding based on the needs of the local population is very important, I think. Yeah. And then again, just to kind of highlight those new care pathways that we're trying to establish. You know, we're really kind of following the lead from the integrated care teams, or they had set up in those kind of 12 pioneering locations, setting up those hubs with those teams, expanding outwards. This is kind of what we're doing with the Healthy Age Friendly Homes as well, is kind of starting it out in these 9 pilot sites, building up the trust, building up the local knowledge and expertise, and then expanding that outwards, hopefully in the next phase.
So building up the model, in effect, to be able to roll it out, I just say in the next phase, possibly in more areas around the country. Des, can I come to you, if I might?
Sure.
And again, you know, Des, from the HSC and the integrated care of programs for older people, how does Healthy Age Friendly Homes align with the HSE's Integrated Care for Older People's programme and indeed the National Services Plan? Now, I know you have a slide which you think will help us to understand and maybe illustrate the national plan. So shall I put it up there now? And
yeah, that'd be great.
And you could speak to it if you would. Thanks, Des.
Great, thanks, Grania. So the Integrated Care Programme for older people, what we are putting in place is an end-to-end pathway of care for older people, right across all locations of care where any kind of a care or support is delivered to the older person. So if we start with the very left-hand side there, which is the living well at home and supports. So we recognize as a program that much of the support that keeps older people aging well in place is actually delivered outside of the health service. But when the reasons why people fall through the cracks in terms of accessing those services is there isn't a clear coordination of all that is available in somebody's own area. And we've had this feedback from older people who say there's plenty of supports there, but you know, how do you access it, or do you people talk to each other? So I think the care coordination function of the Healthy Age Friendly Homes program is going to be a real asset to us as a program. So that's the first point I'd like to make. The second point is that integrated care for older people, really one of the key aims is the shift left. So how do we make sure that care is delivered to the older person as close to their own home as possible? And how do we avoid hospital, if at all possible, in terms of how we deliver care around an episode of ill health? But very often, the driver of a hospital admission is because the physical environment of somebody's home is creating exacerbations in existing health conditions. And so if we think about people living with chronic asthma or chronic, COPD, if their home isn't warm enough, if it's not insulated enough, if their windows need replacing, for example, all of these things have a knock-on effect and create very negative health outcomes for the older person and drive that high-end usage of hospital services. So the age-friendly program, having a one-stop shop approach where all things housing around the needs of a particular older person are dealt with through one referral is really, really invaluable to the integrated care program. The third point I'd like to make then is that, of course, yes, we want to see the shift left, and we want to avoid hospital if at all possible for older people, but there are always going to be cases where people have to be admitted to hospital. So what we're doing within the integrated care program for older people is establishing age-attuned pathways of care through the hospital, so that we focus on discharge as early as possible from the moment that the person is admitted into the hospital. Sometimes the reason for a delayed discharge from hospital, again, comes down to a need within the person's own living environment. So it might be around, the physical environment, there's too many hazards, for example, or it might be that there are home adaptations that are required to get this person home to their own home. And so again, that referral is really important for us in terms of how we deliver on the aims and objectives of our program. The final point that I'd like to make is that really, if we think about our population of older people at the moment, so currently there's around just in excess of 700,000 older people over 65 living in Ireland today. And about 3.5% to 4% of those live in long-term care. By 2031, which is really, a blink away, if you think of it in time, that figure will be in excess of 1 million people. So over 20% of people in Ireland will be aged over 65. And if you extrapolate that in terms of the percentage of people living in long-term residential care, that creates, I suppose, a scenario where it becomes unsustainable. And it's a very big ask of a health service to provide that kind of level of support. But also, we need to build in choice for older people in terms of, like we talked about earlier on, looking at alternative housing options for older people. That's a big ask, but it's a multi-sectoral ask. So I think that, the HSE certainly has a role to play in terms of delivering enhanced home care for people, in delivering enhanced rehabilitative care. But there's also roles for people, for example, within the NGO sectors. So services like the home share, for example, a really innovative service that, buddies an older person up with somebody who is looking for, affordable accommodation within their own area, and they provide, support to that person while they're living in the home. Really, really innovative. And then we look at the local authority sector and housing bodies, and how do we create new housing options for our older people to make sure that that option to stay in a living environment where you have your own front door is possible for people, but also that we use, options like, assisted technology and telehealth and all of those things. And again, this is a key function that would be carried out by the Age-Friendly Healthy Homes initiative that is really, really invaluable to us.
Very good. And some questions coming in specifically here, Des, for yourself around, are there extra resources, funding being provided to support services in areas where these kind of programs are being rolled out? In particular, they're talking about the waiting list for OT assessment of homes, for example, and the difficulty of getting an OT to come and do an assessment. So just a question about the resourcing of this to make it happen, because I think your slide is really clear about what it will look like, but the question of resourcing.
Well, we're actually living in a time of unprecedented investment into our health services, which is really fantastic. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity that we will not see again. So if we look along, the bottom right-hand side of this model, which is the Ambulatory Care Hub, so we are establishing these hubs right across the country on a population basis. So a bit like what Andrew talked about earlier on, how we move to that system where we are working on a population-based allocation of resource. So there will be an ambulatory care hub with a full multidisciplinary team for older people in a hub that will cover a population of between 150 and 200,000 people. And that would be uniform right across the country. And so those teams are being stood up at the moment. All of them are at various stages of recruitment. And so I would imagine at this stage, around 19 of those teams are actually actively seeing patients and are, in the areas where the Age-Friendly Healthy Homes initiative is there, they're actively liaising with them and making sure the referrals are cross-happening between the two services. So that's really important. So I don't think that resourcing actually is going to be an issue, or is certainly not as much of an issue as it has been in the past.
Right. And in some ways, it seems to me from looking at this, and I've obviously been keeping an eye as well on the work that you do in a wider kind of context, having the model for how to deal with those of us who are going to be over 65 by the time we get. I think this is crucial. That before this, we had lots of people saying, "Oh, it's going to happen," but we don't know how to cope with it. Whereas the beauty of this is that you have the model, and this program we're looking at today really fits hand in glove.
It does.
With
and that. I think I remember when we were put this graphic here, it looks quite simplistic, this was months in the making. And it's
Sure.
really around, you know, if we think about risks that are posed to patients, or particularly older patients, those risks present at a time of transition of care when somebody is moving from one care setting to another. And so it was really important to be able to come up with this end-to-end model where you have clear communication across all care settings, where you share information. A key element of that is going to be an electronic shared record, and, you know, moves are afoot to make sure that that is put in place. But absolutely, you're dead right that this model and how we make sure that there is a clear end-to-end pathway for older people, in our case for frailty, for falls and dementia, is really, really important. And then for chronic disease, it's for respiratory health, cardiac health and diabetes.
Exactly. That's great. Thank you. And that's a very smooth transition. I want to speak with Catherine, if I might next. Catherine, Chief Officer of Age Friendly Ireland. A lot of people saying, what do you mean age friendly? Will you talk us a little bit about what does it mean age friendly? Is it like whatever age you are, your house should be friendly? What is the work of Age Friendly Ireland? Just a little introduction for us all. Thank you.
Thanks, Grania, and thanks very much for having me today, and delighted to be here with our partners in Sláintecare and the HSE, and obviously our own parent department, Department of Housing, and everybody that's working towards this specific programme to make it such a success. Age Friendly, the concept originated, Grania, in around 2005 and 2006, when the World Health Organization set out, I suppose, a global warning or alert to the world to let them know that we were seeing, I suppose, two significant changes: population growth, and within that context, population aging, and to make them aware of all the public policy, I suppose, challenges that was going to present. And within that context, they did, I suppose, a framework across the country, a consultation across the world with 33 cities to identify, well, what do we mean by age friendly? So that's clearly set out in a global framework, and it has 8 domains, and it covers housing, planning, infrastructure, health, participation, economic development, climate action, all of those things, very much aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals within the UN decade. So Ireland started in 2008 to look at a model in terms of what we would do to become age friendly. And I suppose if we fast track to where we are now, we have 31 age friendly programs operating within the local government sector under a shared service, which is, I suppose, mandated by government as a statutory service, and awarded by the World Health Organization in 2019 as designation as the first age friendly country in the world. So age friendly means that we are working towards providing an Ireland that is going to be conducive to aging, but it's not just a focus on older people. Right. So the structures are there and the initiatives are there. So when we talk about age friendly, we talk about universality, and we design for older people, we design for all. We're completely diverse, inclusive of everybody, and not just an homogenous cohort of older people, to be fair. Yeah. So to date, there's been 12,000 initiatives that have been rolled out across the country through the programme, with many of them scaled up, whether around infrastructure, buildings, accessibility, participation initiatives, housing, health, and so forth. And it's a testament to all our colleagues and all our officials and the people that are working across all sectors that we've got to where we are. And Healthy Age Friendly Homes is a phase of that. It's a model. I know we've referred to it as a pilot, but I suppose the innovation that was seen by the founders of this in Sláintecare and local government about how bringing together a cooperative programme like this, straddling both health and local government, was going to be really transformative. And that it most certainly is. And we're really, really excited about what has been achieved to date.
Great. And I have some questions that Councillor Anne Feeney has put in, maybe specifically for yourself, Catherine. She's asked, why is it only 2 years? I think we've covered that. It's a pilot, and hopefully we'll see it going out around the country. And then she wonders, is the service only available for those in social housing? My understanding is that it's not, that it's available for the wider cohort of people. And then the last thing she answered, and it's a good question, is around, sourcing. I have some cases, she says, where people have been given home care packages and have implemented house adaptations required by the acute hospital social workers or occupational health staff. But unfortunately, it's extremely difficult to source home care people to support a discharge. Is this being addressed as part of this initiative? Detailed, but a good question.
I'll take them in sequential order, if that's okay, Brian. So I suppose, first of all, this is phase 1 of a long-term vision. Sláintecare is a 10-year vision for Ireland for right care and right place. And as Des was talking about, shift left, stay left. And that's the vision And within that context, there's huge amount of transformation going on, and this is a key component of it. So we started in 9 for a couple of reasons. Grania, part of the recommendation from the WHO was that you take a design and build approach. So if we went into 31 straight out, we wouldn't have had time to measure on a smaller scale what we were getting right, but more importantly, what we were getting wrong. And as Andrew has spoken to, even within 10 months, we've been faced with unprecedented challenges, but we've seen we could improve it by doing X, Y, and a Z, and Mark has spoken to that as well. So we started in 9, and there were a number of criteria, like where there was integrated care, where there were higher admissions to residential care, where there was higher levels of deprivation and stuff like that. So those 9 were selected on that basis. So the good news to everybody that's here is we are planning to go to phase 2, which was national, but it's part of a much longer term program.
Yeah.
The second thing is, no, it's not exclusive to people in social housing, and social housing only makes up a small percentage of housing in Ireland, just to speak to that, Grania. And we have a diverse range of older people. We have people who are asset rich, cash poor, living in houses that are far beyond their needs and ability to manage, and they're the people that can right size, can go to, Des had mentioned the home share model. We also, there's the Ava housing model, and I know there was some questions around sustainability. That's where you can convert your home or split the capacity of your home, but really work towards having a greener home that is much more energy efficient and neutralize nearly your utility bills in total. So there are all these models, and we have to look at, that's why this program has the ability to take referrals from complex. It's not just a clinical referral. And what it's really doing is augmenting all those support services. As Des said, in the community and voluntary sector, we have 16,000 voluntary groups across the country who are all doing great things, but not in a consistent and a coordinated way. And local government, Grania, being the second tier of government, and that's what they are at local level, have traction everywhere in the country. And that is why the positioning of this has been where the innovation has been. Funding from the department, hosting by the local government sector, fostering collaboration. There's 37,000 employees in local government. There's must be 67 DES in the HSE, and they're all collaborating on those 2 specific, notwithstanding all those wider people that are bringing in those support services.
Okay.
So that's where the transformation comes in.
That's great. I want to bring in Claire, if I might. Claire Nocton, you're very welcome, Claire. From the Department of Housing. Claire, would you speak maybe to us about the importance of this initiative, the Healthy Age Friendly Homes, to housing options for older people and its contribution to the longer term goals of our national housing policy, Housing for All?
I will, and thanks a million to everybody for inviting me here today and to have the opportunity to speak on behalf of the department. I suppose the first thing for us is that Housing for All, which was published in September 21, provides a new housing plan for Ireland to 2030, with the overall objective that every citizen in the state should have access to good quality homes through a steady supply of housing in the right locations with economic, social and environmental sustainability built into that system. The strategy commits to implementing actions under housing options for older people, for our ageing population. The Housing for All strategy focuses on increasing the housing options available to older people to facilitate them to age in place with dignity and independence, including policies, for example, on right sizing for older people. And work is underway at the moment in the department to inform and progress the development of a national policy on right sizing. I think that's kind of more at a policy level. I suppose just even listening to the presentations today and looking at how they interact, how the department works on a practical level through local authorities and through the Healthy Age Friendly Homes, the suite of housing adaptation grants the department funds as well. Certainly the suite of grants facilitates older people and people with disability to remain living independently in their homes. Again, I mean, part like that obviously is crucial under Housing for All, and is also very much certainly the message that the strong message that came across today has been a key driver in the Healthy Age Friendly Homes.
Yeah, great stuff. And Claire, in terms of looking at like people are tired picking up the papers. There's a housing crisis. We all know there is. How do we carve out what's really necessary, though, for older people, whether that's the downsizing that we were talking about or the adaptation? I mean, it is a challenge.
It's a huge challenge. And I think, again, going back to the language, I think downsizing and right sizing, I think if we look at it from the point of view of right sizing rather than downsizing, like downsizing is obviously one option within a suite of options that I think the national policy will have to include. And Catherine again mentioned the AVA project, and again that's another way of looking at it. I think that the focus has to be on aging in place, and so it has to be broader than just downsizing and right sizing. So it's absolutely a challenge, and the policy it's very much in its infancy within the department, but obviously we're looking at a wide range of issues, not just not just downsizing.
Yes, yeah, very good. A huge amount of questions, huge interest in this, guys. I have to say, a lot of interest in this topic. There's a general comment from Porrick who talks about the additional community support that the National Ambulance Service provides. And we featured them on one of the webinars some months back, specialist paramedics, community SPCs as they're called, where they would identify appropriate calls where maybe, what a patient needs is to be managed at home, and linking them with the equivalent of these local coordinators. So that's interesting just in terms of existing services, maybe just doing it differently, not always driving somebody to the acute hospital, but rather looking at what kind of supports they need. Des, Maura got in touch, back to you. She says, it's great in theory, but realistically, with personal experience, my 86-year-old father had to wait 2 years for an OT assessment when planning discharge from hospital a few months ago. What is the plan for quicker review by OT physios, which is often a requirement to get elderly home from an acute setting?
Sure. So the integrated care teams that have been set up at the moment will include full multidisciplinary representation. So physio, OT, dietitian, speech and language therapist, there'll be a community-based geriatrician, registrar, nursing staff. And the model for integrated care is based on rapid access, intensive response for a time-limited period of up to 6 weeks, and then discharge back to primary care. So this is new. It's a brand new model. It's only being rolled out at the moment. These teams are under recruitment at the moment, but that is the plan for the complex care of the care of older adults with complex care needs. That is the plan, that it will be rapid access into these teams. And so once a referral is received in a hub, you want to see that a decision is taken as to whether that referral is accepted or not within 48 hours of receiving it, and then a plan of action is taken in terms of contacting that patient. So that's where we're at in terms of the integrated care program. And then for older people who don't qualify as patients for the integrated care program, like I said earlier on, there is unprecedented recruitment going on in the HSE at the moment because of the investment that's coming in. So we are coming from a historical base of where investment in community services wasn't there to the level that it should be, but that is being corrected now. So I think people will over time see a very significant change in those kinds of times that are referenced in that comment.
Yeah, very good. And I want to go back to Andy, just asking a couple of questions. Somebody asking, Andy, is there a job description for the role of coordinator, and how is the post funded?
Yep. So just in terms of the funding, so Sláintecare is funding those roles. We've mentioned that it's a 2-year pilot phase, so those positions are for 2 years. Obviously, the longer term ambition is that we would have these people in as permanent posts, but that would be obviously subject to us being successful in the next phase and the phases after that. In terms of the coordinators themselves, there's actually a lovely section on the Healthy Age Friendly Homes website under Age Friendly Ireland, and each of the coordinators, each of the 9, have given a little introduction of who they are, the section that they work in. There's a picture of them, their telephone and email addresses there. So I think that's a really important part of this whole process, has been building up the kind of the trust and the network in a central location. So I think if anyone wants to find out the kind of work that the coordinator can do, pick up the phone, send an email, they're more than happy. You've seen the enthusiasm that Gillian brought to her videos and work. That's brought by all of the coordinators on this program.
Yeah. Samantha sent in a comment to say, I think it's vital to make it clear that the Housing Adaptation Grant and the Mobility Grant is means tested and is capped even if you're eligible. So she's making a difference between the things maybe we're talking about in this program and those wider eligibility criteria and capping. Alice tells us that the Robert Gordon University in Scotland is doing a lot of really interesting research about housing for elderly, and anyone who's interested should have a look at that. Andy, can I come back to you and ask you, where is it going now? So you're at this point, it's a 2-year experience. It sounds like you're having great success. What's the plan?
Absolutely. We're very much planning already for the next phases of this program. We've alluded to this before, that the pilot phase really was just to get the program out there. As we said, build trust, build a network of coordinators around those 9 sites. And we've seen an overwhelming response really over the last 10 months, above and beyond what we were expecting. And like the testimonials alone show that even small things have such a big impact on a person's life, enabling them to feel comfortable in their own homes. So really, you know, Sláintecare is very much a partner with this program, and we'll be looking to take the early results that we're getting from that research piece from Maynooth University and put that into a business case and a proposal to scale this up to the national level. And we'll have that kind of academic research piece kind of underlying all of that. And really, you know, we're looking at the next phase and how we can scale that up. And then beyond that, you know, talking about that population-based approach, can we then long-term establish these programs as kind of population-based programs for older people around the country?
Very good. Catherine, you want to come back in there briefly?
Yeah, Grania, you asked me a question about home care,
yeah.
and I didn't get to answer it.
Yeah,
So
we're running out of time. I'm sorry. But
well, I think it's a
great.
pertinent question,
yeah,
so I just want to come in,
Please come
and
back
I didn't
in.
want to ask her to think that I had forgotten about it. So
well done.
Just in terms of home care, it's very much aware at the minute that we have a crisis within the home care sector, and just to let them know that there is budgets for home care, but the difficulty with people is ascertaining it. Really from 2 perspectives, because there's been a lot of staff out with COVID and a lot of the restrictions, there's backlogs. But can I just say that the Department of Health are actually, and Minister Butler has developed a strategic workforce advisory group where all the departments are working together to come up with, I suppose, a proper response, and not just putting a plaster on this and fixing it for a month or 2. They're actually taking a long-term vision of it. So whilst there are challenges, and I know there's allocations where people can get private home care providers as well as the statutory, it is something that is at the top of the agenda for the department at the moment.
Well, that's great to hear, Catherine. Thank you so much for that. I want to thank all of our guests this afternoon, Des, Andrew, Catherine, Claire, Mark, who was with us earlier on. I particularly want to thank the participants on the programme who gave up their time to make the videos, to bring the stories of the success of the programme. And as we've, I think, in our conversations, it's not without its challenges, but it really is part of that wider vision of how are we going to ensure, in Catherine's words, that we have an age-friendly Ireland for all of us. And I want to congratulate Andrew in Sláintecare and Age Action Ireland for this really interesting and I think successful collaboration that I would love to see it. And we have seen other Sláintecare funded pilots. We have seen them mainstreamed and rolled out across the country. So it would be wonderful if your evaluation report shows that that is possible, especially in the context of the work that Des is doing around the integrated care. It's a great fit. So thank you to all our panelists. Thank you to the team who always are wonderful in helping to produce each session. I want to thank Rosaline Harlan, Muriel Farrell, Kira Eustace, Lindsay Dre, Nicole Keohan, Andrew Hannigan and Tom Duke. You can watch the webinar back or recommend it to your colleagues, and it will be available on the Sláintecare website. We had lots of questions today, and any that we didn't get to, we will follow up and get back to you. We're delighted to see the interest and the attendance at today's webinar. From me, Gráinne Healy, continue to stay safe, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.